So, get this. In 2026, Formula One is rolling the dice on one of its biggest technical gambles ever. And it all comes down to what's in the fuel tank. Today, we're going to break down this high-stakes chemistry experiment that could honestly redefine racing as we know it.
But before we get into the nitty-gritty, just imagine this for a second. What if a team's multi-million-dollar car could suddenly lose almost 500 horsepower on the main straight? No, this isn't some sci-fi movie plot. It is a very, very real possibility baked right into the 2026 rules. And frankly, it has the teams absolutely terrified.
And that right there brings us to the heart of the matter. F1's massive gamble on sustainable fuels. This whole thing isn't just about going green. Oh no, it's a huge risk, high reward experiment that basically creates two massive traps, two new ways a team could lose a world championship.
Okay, so here's the headline change. In 2026, every single car on the grid will be powered by a 100% sustainable fuel. But what does that actually mean? Well, it's probably not what you're thinking.
What we're talking about here is something called synthetic e-fuel. This isn't your standard biofuel from crops or something. No, this is, well, you could call it lab juice. It's literally created by chemists, using super advanced processes like capturing carbon right out of the air or even using household waste. The whole point is to have a carbon-neutral fuel, but, getting the chemistry just right on this stuff, it's turning into a massive headache for the engineers.
And that headache? Well, it leads us straight to our first major problem, this risk of a sudden, catastrophic power loss right in the middle of a race. And it all stems from the new engine formula.
Okay, now check this out, because this is where things get really wild. Just look at the power shift here. The power you get from the good old internal combustion engine, the ICE, it just tanks, dropping from around 800 horsepower all the way down to 540. And to fill that gap, the electric power from the battery system goes through the roof to a whopping 470 horsepower. And this right here really paints the picture of the new reality, doesn't it? The 2026 power unit is a perfect 50-50 split. You are now just as reliant on your battery as you are on your engine. And here's the kicker. That battery has to be constantly charged by the engine, which of course is where the fuel comes in. Okay, so here's how it all falls apart. It's like a chain reaction, and it all kicks off with the chemistry. If the new synthetic fuel just doesn't have enough energy density, not enough oomph in every drop, the engine really struggles. That leads to inefficient battery charging, and if you can't charge that battery fast enough on the straights, it will eventually hit zero. The second it does, bam, that 470 horsepower of electric boost just vanishes. Instantly. And this quote just nails it, right? Imagine you're a driver, flat out on the main straight, and suddenly half your power is just gone. You're not just slow at that point, you're a sitting duck, just waiting for the whole field to fly past you. Your race is, for all intents and purposes, over. But believe it or not, the danger doesn't even stop when the car crosses the finish line. Let's talk about the second big problem here, the 1-liter disqualification rule. This is a rule that can just erase your entire weekend's work in an instant. Yeah, it all comes down to this single number, 1 liter. This is the amount of fuel the FIA, the sports governing body, has to be able to pump out of your car after the race. And the reason for this is pretty simple, actually. Because all these fuels are being brewed up in high-tech labs, the FIA is, let's say, a little paranoid that teams might try to slip in some illegal cheat codes, some chemical additives to get an unfair edge. That 1-liter sample is for them to test. And if you can't provide it for any reason at all, the penalty is brutal and absolute: disqualification.
And hey, don't think for a second this is just some theoretical problem that'll never happen. Just ask Sebastian Vettel. He drove a brilliant race in Hungary, finished second on the road, but his team miscalculated. The FIA could only get 0.3 liters out of his tank, not the full liter. And even though it was a genuine error, he was disqualified. Podium gone, points gone, all of it wiped out.
So you can see how this creates this massive dilemma for the engineers, right? On one hand, for pure, raw speed, you want to finish that race on the very last drop of fuel, because every extra bit you're carrying is just dead weight, slowing you down. But on the other hand, the rules are screaming at you to keep a full 1-liter safety cushion. It's a total razor's edge between winning and getting thrown out. So when you put these two huge challenges together, one on the track and one in the rulebook, you start to see something interesting. The main race in Formula One is actually shifting away from the circuit and into the chemistry lab. Look, the rules about how much fuel you can use have always been a big deal.
But now, they're not just a big deal, they are the battleground, the whole game. The team that can master the chemistry of their e-fuel, they're going to have a killer advantage.
So what we've got brewing is a whole new kind of arms race. The top teams are pouring insane resources into developing the most energy-dense fuel possible. This perfect lab juice they're all chasing has to pull off a trifecta. First, it's got to have enough energy to keep that massive battery topped up, so you don't fall off that power cliff. Second, it has to be so efficient that you're guaranteed to have that 1-liter sample left at the end. And third, and this is the really tricky part, it has to do all of that while being 100% legal.
And all of this brings us to the big picture. Formula One is basically betting the farm on this massive tech leap. They're staring down these two huge threats: embarrassing failure on the track and humiliating disqualification after the race. Now, this gamble could make F1 a true leader in green tech, or it could fundamentally screw up the racing itself.
And that leaves us with the big question, right? Is going all in on this super complex fuel chemistry really the right move for the DNA of Formula One? Or does the risk of having races decided by chemists in a lab instead of drivers on a track threaten the very thing we love about the sport? You know, that's a debate that's going to be raging in the paddock for a long, long time to come.